What if one of science's most consequential errors was not methodological, but philosophical? Welcome to the Curiously Cognitive Collective. For centuries, science asked powerful questions about the natural world. But one question went largely unchallenged. Who counts as a conscious being? Not because the data was missing. Not because the evidence was weak. But because of a deeply rooted assumption that animals act, but do not experience. Today, that assumption is unraveling. And its collapse is reshaping science, ethics, and our relationship with the living world. Historically, animals were classified as instinct-driven organisms, merely biological machines governed by reflex rather than feeling. This view can be traced back to early philosophical traditions, most notably René Descartes, who argued that animals lacked minds in the way humans possess them. Under this framework, animals could react to stimuli but did not feel pain, emotion, or awareness in a meaningful sense. This assumption became embedded in scientific practice. In laboratories, animals were treated as tools rather than subjects. In agriculture, efficiency outweighed welfare. In law, animals were categorized as property. In everyday life, emotional behaviors were dismissed as projection or coincidence. Pain responses were minimized, emotions were ignored. Curiosity was labeled accidental. And because animals were believed to lack conscious experience, humans believed they owed them nothing. But science has a habit of exposing its own blind spots. As research methods improved and long-term behavioral studies expanded, animals began to defy the machine metaphor. Across species, scientists observed behaviors that could not be explained by simple stimulus-response models. Crows bending wires to create tools. Elephants recognizing themselves in mirrors. Rats showing empathy by freeing trapped companions. Dolphins calling one another by unique signature whistles. Octopuses solving puzzles, escaping enclosures, and displaying individual personalities. Animals demonstrated problem-solving, long-term memory, social recognition, emotional expression, even learning across contexts. These weren't isolated anecdotes. They were repeatable, measurable, and increasingly difficult to ignore. The question shifted from "Are animals conscious?" to "How much evidence is enough?" In 2024, that question reached a turning point. Leading neuroscientists, cognitive scientists, and behavioral researchers issued the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness. The declaration states that many animals, specifically mammals, birds and cephalopods, are conscious beings based on converging neurological and behavioral evidence. This wasn't a sentimental claim. It wasn't philosophical speculation. It was a scientific acknowledgement. Researchers pointed to neural correlates of pain and pleasure, complex learning systems, flexible decision-making, emotional processing circuits, even memory and anticipation of future events. Importantly, the declaration emphasized something critical. Different brains can still produce conscious experience. Consciousness does not require a human-style brain to exist. One of the most profound implications of this research comes from studying species with radically different neural architectures. Take octopuses. They don't have a centralized brain like mammals. Their neurons are distributed throughout their arms. And yet, octopuses show curiosity, play behavior, learning through observation, individual preferences, and responses consistent with pain and pleasure. Like birds, despite lacking a neocortex, they demonstrate reasoning abilities comparable to primates. These findings force a shift in perspective. Consciousness is not a single switch that is either on or off. It is not exclusive to one structure or species. Consciousness exists on a spectrum. And animals occupy that spectrum in many forms. The New York Declaration did not grant animals consciousness. It did not create a new reality. It acknowledged what animals have always lived. What changed was not the animals. It was us. Science finally aligned its conclusions with its observations. The philosophical error wasn't a lack of data. It was a refusal to follow the data to its ethical implications. And that brings us to the most important question, one science alone cannot answer. If animals are conscious beings, capable of pain, pleasure, fear, curiosity, learning, and memory, what obligations arise from this knowledge? How should it reshape research practices, food systems, legal protections, education, daily human behavior? This is not the end of the conversation. It is the beginning of a more honest one. For more explorations into animal minds, consciousness, and the science that challenges what we think we know, join the Curiously Cognitive Collective by liking and subscribing. Because understanding the animal mind doesn't diminish humanity, it expands it. Stay curious.